The Roaring Twenties would see America consumed with a post-war optimism that would only come to an end with the disastrous Wall Street crash of 1929. However, Wall Street would start the decade with a different sort of disaster. America's largest terrorist attack until the September 11th attacks, over 80 years later. This is the Wall Street bombing of 1920. September 16th started as any other Thursday did on the busy street. Walkways were packed with young clerks, runners and staff, bolstered by the lunchtime rush on one of the city's busiest corners. A horse-drawn wagon creaking under its heavy load slips inconspicuously through the crowd. It parks opposite the JP Morgan & Co. Bank. The driver disembarks and is never seen again. At 12:01, the explosion from the cart booms across the city, flipping cars and trams with its immense power. The detonation is immense, killing 30 people instantly. 10 others would later die from injuries sustained, with a total number of injured estimated to be more than 200. This number was not only due to the blast, but also the subsequent panic that caused many of the injured to be trampled. For comparison, the Manchester Arena bombing that shocked the UK killed 23. The majority of those who died were the ones outside the surrounding buildings. The young. A woman's severed head, still with its hat on, stuck to the facade of the JP Morgan building. A millionaire restaurateur, Edward Sweet, had been so badly struck by the blast, only one of his fingers could be found in the wreckage. Notably, Ulysses S. Grant, grandson of the Civil War general and president of the same name, was also injured in the attack. Huge volumes of glass rained down on the survivors of the explosion, furthering the chaos. Luckily, those inside were mostly protected by the heavy curtains that blocked the deadly shards. A second panic swept the crowd as the rumor of a second bomb bounced around, though thankfully this was not the case. Police and nurses were quickly deployed to the scene to provide aid and order. James Saul, a 17-year-old Wall Street messenger, managed to take 30 injured people to hospital by commandeering a car, saving lives. Not long after, soldiers of the US 22nd Infantry arrived in force, bayonets fixed and rifles loaded. They were there to protect the US Assay Office from potential robbery attempts, as $900 million worth of gold bars were being moved the day of the attack. New York had just suffered its first major terrorist attack. Sadly, it would not be its last. Trading was halted 1 minute after the blast by New York Stock Exchange Director William H. Remick to prevent a panic. This would have been done sooner, but a rule that barred running on the trading floor meant he was forced to walk briskly. The ringing of the suspension gong marked the first time trading had ever been halted by violence. Initially, investigators from the Bureau of Investigation, precursor to the FBI, were hesitant to call the incident an act of terrorism. The lack of a specific target confused them, so other causes, like an accident or airborne attack from a foreign entity, were considered, but quickly discarded. The assassination of JP Morgan himself was also considered, but ruled out as JP Morgan was in Europe at the time and would read of the incident days later in a paper while in Scotland, though it should be noted that his son, Julius Morgan, did sustain minor injuries in the attack. By 3:30 the same day, the New York Stock Exchange had decided it would reopen for business the next day. To facilitate this, the street was cleaned throughout the night, destroying evidence that would be pivotal to cases like this today. Stocks temporarily soared the next day in defiance of the attack. By coincidence, the Sons of the American Revolution had scheduled a rally on the same corner to mark the 133rd anniversary of the adoption of the American Constitution. Thousands attended the event, singing the Star-Spangled Banner, whilst the remarkably unscathed statue of Washington looked on. Final death that can be attributed to the attack came 5 days later, when a man committed suicide as a result of what he had seen in the attack. Such was the scale of the attack that the Washington Post called it an act of war. Officials quickly moved to blame opponents of capitalism and foreigners for the attack, after it was made clear it was not a robbery attempt. This was due to the rising Red Scare in America after intense anti-foreigner propaganda during World War I. Reconstruction of the bomb was able to determine that it was made of a 45 kilogram or 100 pound dynamite charge wrapped with 230 kilograms or 500 pounds of cast iron sash weights, the kind used in windows. It was clear that the sash weights were designed to act as shrapnel, which displayed to investigators that the bomb was indeed meant to cause as much loss of human life as possible, as opposed to cause property damage to the nearby buildings. Flyers were soon discovered in a local post office box, crudely spelt on red ink and white paper. They read, "Remember, we will not tolerate any longer. Free the political prisoners, or it will be sure death for all of you." And the bottom was, "American anarchist fighters." This seemed to support the officials' theories. They were similar to flyers found around the June 1919 anarchist bombing, but a definitive link between the bombing and the American anarchist fighters could not be proven. Descriptions given of the driver were vague and conflicting, giving investigators little to work on. The horseshoes found in the wreckage were new, but the blacksmith who shod the horse couldn't remember the client well enough to give a description. One interesting lead for investigators was seldom employed tennis champion Edward Fisher. Letters written by Edwin to his friends warned them not to be in the Wall Street area on the 15th or 16th as it would be dangerous. His groundskeeper confirmed this, telling investigators that Edwin had also warned him. When questioned, Edwin claimed to have found the information through the air. Further investigation found Edwin made warnings like these to his friends often. He was committed to Amityville Asylum, where he was found insane but harmless. The authorities' top suspect in the years following the attack was Luigi Galliani, the head of a large anarchist faction, the Gallianists. When it was true that Luigi and his men were responsible for bombings, nothing was able to link him to the attack. Despite this lack of evidence, authorities were able to deport Luigi back to his native Italy. After 3 years of investigation with no further leads, the case was placed on hold. The FBI reopened the case in 1944 and reached a similar conclusion. They too believed the attack was performed by radical leftist Italian immigrants. Specifically, they suspected Mario Buda, a Gallianist and known bomb maker. Two of Buda's associates had been indicted 5 days prior, and it was theorized the attack was carried out in revenge. Buda was even known to use sash weights in his bombs. The surrounding buildings still bear the scars of the attack, but no memorial has ever been made. This is in part due to JP Morgan's desire to distance itself from the incident. Personally, I believe Mario Buda to be behind the attack, but the case remains unsolved. Thanks a bunch for watching, it means so much to me. Please subscribe, it helps a small channel like mine so much. Until next time, goodbye.